Is it just me, or does the world feel chaotic? There might be potential nuclear war. There seems to be no justice in the world. People are talking about false flags. Gas and oil prices climbing again. People are getting divorced left, right, centre. The gender wars are still going on, never ending. And every day the headlines feel like another crisis. 1 minute it's geopolitics, the next it's corruption, then there's economic panic, and everything just feels scattered, disjointed, chaos. And the question is, why does the world suddenly feel like it's spinning out of control? I mean, is this just how the world works? Because I sure as hell did not sign up for this. Or has something about the way we received information fundamentally changed in the last decade? More importantly, who actually benefits when you feel overwhelmed and chaotic? This is Toxic Physiology. So, in this episode, we are going to be talking about why the world feels chaotic. Now, since the pandemic, things have not been the same. And I'm not the only one. I know I'm not. I've seen many people post the same thing. Since 2020, the world has changed. Things are different. And you know what it is? I don't blame the pandemic. I blame this one show. I don't know if you guys watch this. I kind of feel like they were tempting fate here. I kind of feel like they were tempting fate. The second I saw this show, I was like, yeah, this is bad karma. This is bad karma. We should not have created this damn show. And, of course I watched it because I'm nosy. But it didn't make me feel good. No, it didn't. And since then, things have changed, okay? So Netflix might be responsible for everything that's going on. I'm joking, but I am being serious. Since 2020, I feel like my nervous system is paying compound interest every single day. Every day seems more hectic than the day prior. When I think about what was my life before the pandemic, well, it was actually quite normal. I was just finishing up my second year as a doctor. I was planning holidays, trying to get into a training program and trying to build a family. Politics did exist. I've always been interested in politics, but it didn't dominate everyone's nervous system every single day. And then the pandemic hit and the entire world suddenly felt completely different. And since then, man, it's been crisis after crisis after crisis. I mean, you've got some people committing genocide, you've got war, you've got economic instability, you've got all these scandals, you've got so much injustice, there's mass protests, global tension, there's the so-called immigration crisis. And even though all these things feel completely unrelated, when they appear back to back, something happens to your body. Now, the brain doesn't process all of these headlines separately. No, it processes them as one continuous emergency. And in fact, psychologists have measured this shift. They found that news-related stress and media overload have become the norm, especially for people who are glued to rolling updates. People like me who are constantly on X, checking what's happening. Now, if you've ever felt more on edge since 2020, your physiology is actually responding to a world that now feels like one continuous emergency. If you've become more angry, suspicious, or extreme since 2020, that might not be a personality issue. It might be your physiology under pressure. Now, I've noticed something. People are becoming more and more polarized, more reactive, more distrustful. We're distrusting one another, we're distrusting professionals, we're distrusting our government. Ideas that once seemed absurd, conspiracy almost, now have somehow been proven correct. The world does feel upside down, and all of this brings about uncertainty. If uncertainty does one thing, is it fuels suspicion. I want you to understand something. The gap between official narratives and lived experience has made people question everything. And ironically, that's exactly the mental state that makes humans easier to steer. Some people believe we're in the end times. You have all sorts of prophecies coming out. Other people think that society is collapsing. But what I want to ask you is, what if the chaos isn't entirely accidental? And I'm not saying that there's, a secret cabal that's pulling every string. No, of course I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that there are industries that profit from you being unable to relax. They profit from you feeling dysregulated, because a dysregulated population is actually much easier to influence than a regulated one. Now, your brain cannot tell the difference between a real threat and a threat that's on your screen, okay? Whether you see a lion in front of you or you see an email from your manager, your stress axis is going to respond exactly the same. And what I want you to realize is, in a world where we are constantly exposed to information, our human stress system wasn't built for dealing with that. Now, let me talk through the biology a little bit. We have a structure called the amygdala in the brain, and its job is simple. It detects danger. When something looks threatening, it activates your HPA axis, your stress axis. Now, I've talked about this before in this episode, so if you want to go through the details and understand it a lot better, please have a listen to this after this recording. Now, your stress axis, your HPA axis, it releases these stress hormones called cortisol and adrenaline. And when it's activated, these hormones rise, and they, in effect, make your heart rate rise up, your attention narrows, you become hyper-focused on survival. Now, that's perfect for short-term danger, a predator, an attack, a natural disaster. The design was meant for it to switch on fast, but also to switch off once the threat ends. So in other words, your body was built for occasional storms, not an endless weather warning in your pocket, okay? Now, hear me out. If your thinking has become more black and white, that might not be clarity, it might be cortisol. In the modern world, what our brain processes as danger signals never seem to stop. We have tools that keep us on constant fight or flight mode, which keeps us in constant sympathetic activation. We scroll on our phones, we have constant information. Each scroll shows war, collapse, scandal, violence. War, collapse, scandal, violence. Injustice, injustice, injustice. So, hear me out. Your brain doesn't separate direct danger from information about danger. Let's say, for example, you go to your car and you find out you've got a parking ticket. Your stress axis is going to be activated. Now, I will give you another example. Let's say you woke up and you went on your feed and you found out that they're introducing parking fines in this particular area. Guess what? Even though you don't have a parking fine, your stress axis is also going to be activated. They're two separate things. One, you're seeing the parking ticket. Two, you're hearing news about potential parking tickets. Both of them make you react the same way. And the problem that we have today is that we are constantly receiving information again and again and again and again. And this chronic exposure keeps cortisol elevated. And cortisol, as I mentioned before, is your stress hormone. A high cortisol doesn't just change your mood, it actually alters the prefrontal cortex. What is the prefrontal cortex? Well, actually, it's a very, very important part of your brain. It is your brain center for judgment, empathy, and long-term thinking. When cortisol stays high, your reactions intensify. Your emotional regulation declines. Attention span shrinks, thinking becomes black and white, and empathy basically diminishes. A nervous system that is stuck in threat mode will always reach for simple enemies and black and white explanations, okay? The reason why I don't have a job is because there's all these immigrants. That is what the news has told me, okay? There's a job crisis. On the next page, there's all these immigrants. There's a job crisis, there's all these immigrants. There's a job crisis, there's all these immigrants. I want you guys to go and sit and look at a newspaper and have a look and see how many thought-provoking words do they use? How many enemies do they create? And you know, the irony is this: the more simple the explanation, the more you're likely to listen to it, okay? Why? Because you are in essentially a stress state. You do not want rational, you're not looking for clarity. No. You are looking, I have this problem, who is responsible? And it's as simple and as black and white as that. So, our economy has grown. There is something else that we should be investing in. You probably had no idea about it. It is called the attention economy. There is actually an entire industry that makes an insane amount of money when you feel unsafe. I'll give you an example. Modern media. Okay, let's look at our modern media. It operates inside what's called the attention economy. In other words, attention equals currency. The more attention a story gets, the more revenue it earns. And nothing captures attention faster than threat, scandal, conflict. Why is that? Well, humans are wired for negativity bias. Why? Because it is a survival instinct to look for danger first. There were times when if you did not recognize where danger was, you would not be alive, okay? You would not survive. So that's why we love the goss, the drama, the negativity. And if you were given two headlines, one of them saying something boring like, oh, global cooperation improves stability. And then you had another one saying, war is expanding, destabilization region. Best believe you're more likely to click the second one. You might not even register the first one. Why? Well, because there was a time when if we did not notice threats, we would not survive. So, what does this tell us? Your survival system, your survival instincts are being used against you to keep watching. How treacherous is that? It's absolutely treacherous, isn't it? Seems really manipulative, doesn't it? Now, there's another type of economy that's even more profitable. This is called the outrage economy. The name for the system that turns your anger into profit. What psychologists found was when you add negative words to social media posts or to headlines, there was an increased number of clicks and engagement. And the algorithms learn fast. If I give this person more of this, they're more likely to keep watching, to keep engaging. And you'll find that media and social platforms reward whatever gets the biggest emotional reaction. And this is why you started having an epidemic of rage baiting videos, rage baiting thumbnails, rage baiting titles, crazy hooks. Why? Because they're trying to get your attention. And then they found the best way to get your attention is to make you angry. And this is what psychologists describe as the outrage economy. In other words, content that triggers fear, anger, or moral shock spreads faster than calm explanations. And over time, outrage becomes the default tone of public conversation. So what you find is when outrage is profitable, calm is invisible. I've noticed something about modern news. I often will hear a story and never really get a resolution. And I'm the kind of person who I need a resolution. I need to know what happened. Okay. And often you'll hear this news and it will go on and it's like a shock horror news and then there's no resolution. And it's like, okay, so what happened? But you tend to only find a follow-up when something even worse happens. Now, what you find is breaking alerts, crises that seem to mutate daily. You rarely see long, calm explanations anymore. You rarely ever see, don't worry guys, it's all right. This was all resolved and it's all fine. And if you do, it's usually at the back page. And I wonder why. Why is there no more explanations, man? I want to know. You have to finish a story with me. So it drives me absolutely mad. And I notice this more and more and more. Hearing only fragments of unfolding panic where the topics seem to shift faster than your nervous system can process them. You hear, oh, there's potential war. Oh, there's this scandal. Oh, there's this panic. Your brain never gets closure. You're only getting cliffhangers. Can you imagine? Can you imagine watching a show and you never get closure? You're only getting cliffhangers. This creates a psychological state called permanent uncertainty. You know that, right? It actually changes your psychology. Your stress axis will be permanently activated. It will never stand down. And as a result of that, you become more dysregulated. Now, the truth of the matter is this: context doesn't go viral, okay? Alarm does. So the information environment fills your body with high arousal signals, and it trains your body to experience the world as a continuous emergency, even when nothing directly threatens you. So the story isn't just what's happening in the world, it's what those headlines are doing to your body. I told you this from the beginning. Your dysregulation is profitable for someone. This doesn't require secret masterminds. No, only the logic of the system itself. Now, who gains from you being stressed? Well, politicians gain when voters are emotionally mobilized. They definitely gain, of course. Media gains when fear drives loyalty. Platforms gain when conflict fuels engagement. In fact, there's people out there who literally their whole channel is just rage baiting, causing conflict. They get maximum engagement and they are making money from that. And there's lots and lots of other industries who benefit from you being in a state of crisis. You don't need a conspiracy. You just need a system where fear makes more money than calm. And in that world, chaos isn't a glitch. It's a revenue stream. And who's paying for it? Oh, it's just your nervous system. It's just your health. Don't worry about it. So this has just been a slight overview of everything to make you realize that actually there's a bigger game at play here. And all of these things do link to your health. You get patients coming in saying, I don't feel well, I don't feel good. If your stress system is constantly activated, how well do you think you'll feel? You're not going to feel so great. And that's why I find it so important to talk about these things, to talk about what's happening in society that's causing our stress systems to be permanently activated. Because as a result of it being permanently activated, we're becoming unwell. So what do we need to do? What do we need to do to tackle this? There's some people who say, you know what, I just don't watch news, I don't go on social media, I just put myself in a little bubble and that's it. And to be honest, I don't think that's good, because there is also an importance in being aware of the environment that you're in. There is an importance on being aware of these systems. What I think that needs to happen is limitation. I think regulation begins with limitation. Your nervous system can't function in permanent crisis mode. So the best thing to do is to reduce unnecessary exposure. Limit headline refreshes, avoid doom scrolling before sleep, choose in-depth analysis over constant feed, avoid rage baiters, okay? Turn off non-essential alerts. Now, this won't make you uninformed. It makes you informed at a pace that your body can actually handle, because then you can actually impact change. I want you to try this. Put your news in a container instead of letting it leak throughout the day, okay? Pick set times to check updates, for example, lunchtime or early evening. Use one trusted source instead of jumping between feeds, and disable all your breaking news notifications on your lock screen, because trust me, they are not helping you. When your body goes into threat mode, you start feeling like your chest is tight, your shallow breath, your tunnel focus. When you feel like that, what you need to do is do the opposite, okay? You need to pause and pair it with physiological downregulation, okay? So that's things like slow breathing, grounding through movement, looking at the horizon, taking a moment and stepping. There's no point kind of continuing your doom scrolling. Once you are aware of the fact that, hang on a second, I am doing this, I am spiraling, I am dysregulated, then it is your choice. It becomes in your best interest to step away from that and do things that do regulate you, okay? Go out in nature, do some slow breathing, pray, do whatever. Take that time away, because at the end of the day, the reason why a lot of people say, I watch the news, I do this because I want to be informed, I want to impact change. You're not going to be able to impact change if you're dysregulated. You won't be able to make changes if you are dysregulated. You won't be able to hold injustice to account if you are dysregulated. The only way you'll be able to do any of these things, the only way you'll be useful to any movement, is if you are regulated, calm, and have clarity. At the end of the day, you can't control the headline, okay? You can't control them. But you can control how often your body pays the price for them. And when the news hijacks your body, don't argue with your thoughts. Regulate your physiology. The modern world isn't just fighting for your attention, it's fighting for your nervous system. It literally takes hostage of your biology. It shapes your perception of reality. And then you find yourself feeling constantly angry, fearful, overwhelmed. This is telling you that your physiology is not calm enough to think clearly. And when you can't think clearly, when your prefrontal cortex is no longer being activated, you are losing sound judgment. You are no longer having clarity. You are more emotional, okay? And you're looking for a target. You're looking for a simple enemy to blame and a simple explanation. And often, explanations without clarity could lead to greater harm. And I would argue that in an economy that profits from your dysregulation, learning to self-regulate becomes an act of quiet rebellion, really. And you stop reacting to chaos and you start seeing the pattern behind it. This is Toxic Physiology, where we explain the science behind the chaos. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Anyway, join me next time. We're going to talk about this in way more detail.